Hello, everyone. Hope you guys and your family are having a great start of the year. I'm here to keep you updated with current market conditions, so I'll just go ahead and jump right into it. So first off, basically, one of the things I've been looking at is the labor market, right? Like unemployment, employment rates, and so forth. And I've noticed the trend continually continue where basically a lot of companies are laying off, such as Salesforce, but you might know them by their very popular CRM, Amazon, and many other companies, right? So one thing I was kind of looking at into to kind of get a better idea of what's going on with the layoffs and stuff like that is basically it seems like all these companies kind of overhired to accommodate the just borrowing binge or the craziness from the pandemic where basically all these companies were making a hell of a lot of money because everyone was buying just about everything, right? So a lot of these companies such as Amazon, Salesforce, and so forth have overhired, and it seems that they're laying off a lot of people just to make up for the fact that things are slowing down and they're not as crazy as they were, after or during the pandemic. So yeah, basically Amazon advising that they're going to cut over 18,000 jobs, and then Salesforce as well is cutting about 10% of their workforce, and then Goldman Sachs. So it kind of gives you it's not only the tech sector that is doing these layoffs is also Goldman Sachs. That would be an investment bank. So they are apparently laying off, according to this article, about 4,000 bankers to cut back. The investment markets, the capital markets, the stock market has not been doing very well. So I guess they're laying off people to compensate for that. So yeah, this is what I was kind of like looking at, and it's basically over hiring. So then that makes me think if this is just potentially things coming back to whatever you might call normal. I don't know. But it seems like all that overprinted money from 2020 is being destroyed after basically the demand explosion it caused. So I'm basically speculating that maybe this means that just prices are coming back to whatever normal might be, or things, whatever that might potentially be. But I would say maybe around the time 2019, before the pandemic. So the way basically the economy was around that time. I don't know, but things are kind of crazy, right? So yeah, expect more. So basically it's been a tech sector that has been really laying off. I mean, here it says we expect more tech layoffs to persist as the tech sector was spending money like 1980s rock stars to keep up with the demand and now pivots. So yeah, Facebook basically the whole year last year was laying off people. So they've laid off about 13% of their overall workflow. This just goes into, yeah, the banking. So the company is now partially reversing those hires as investment banking revenues drop. So investment banks are not making that much money because the stock market is not doing well, right? So that kind of pays attention to that. And here it's basically labor markets are still strong. So yeah, one thing that I was looking at, so basically, a lot of these job cuts that are going are not being projected on certain data because of severance pay. Something I was looking into, which basically goes into, a severance package is pay and benefits that employees may be entitled to receive when they leave employment at a company unwillfully. So a lot of that is not being reflected yet, and that might be potentially because of things such as severance packages and so forth. And also, I have been following this. Is something I've been talking about, the semiconductor market, right? So Samsung, which is the world's biggest memory chip maker, has been ramping up production despite price falls and supply glut. So this is a weird situation Samsung has going on. They're basically taking the strategy that while everyone's cutting back on costs, they're going to invest in production and so forth. But it seems to be hitting them pretty hard in a negative way. So Samsung profits fall 69% as demand for semiconductor slump. So one thing that I was looking into and I find interesting, and that this is something I've been talking about for a little while. Memory chip makers are almost a perfect forward indicator to give maybe a potential projection of where prices of certain electronics are going, depending on like demand and so forth. So then I found this statement here within Micron quarterly reports. Micron is one of I think they're the world's second biggest memory chip maker. So Macron is a perfect forward indicator, as memory is used broadly in most end markets. Importantly, Micron said that they are seeing a broadening of the inventory correction, and specifically called out data center, which has been a steward at the same time. PC and low-end Android phones demand has eroded. So Samsung and Micron are basically saying that they're selling less computers and phones. And then that basically means that there's less demand for memory chips, these semiconductors that are specific for that, right? Which they're basically used in everything. So yeah, Samsung, which again is basically one of the big guys in the semiconductor world, they took a big hit. So the world's largest producer of memory chips, smartphones, and TVs said customers were clearing their inventory, and the decline in demand for its chips and their fall in price were greater than expected. So the South Korean company said its operating profit dropped 69% to 4.3 whatever that is in Korean currency over the past 3 months, from 13.87 won. And I don't know if that's billions or trillions, not quite sure what that is, a year earlier. So their operating profits is basically dropped by 69% from the year before. So yeah, basically they have this weird strategy where they are basically investing heavily while all their competitors are cutting back, which is kind of weird. So oversupply problems have been exacerbated by US sanctions on chips exports to China, and iPhone production delays at Foxconn's Chinese plant due to a massive outbreak COVID-19. Apple is Samsung's smartphone rival, but also a big customer for its chips displays. And then memory chip makers include Macron Technology, don't know how to say that one, and SK Hynix are slashing their capital expenditures to adjust to oversupply. So basically all the other memory chip makers are cutting back on investing on in their companies because they see a slowdown. Yet Samsung is doing the opposite, and that's why they've basically taken a 60% hit to their operating profit. So they have a weird strategy going on. US chip maker Micron has said it does not expect a recovery until the second half of the year, and in December announced a 10% cut into the workforce as it expects to remain in the red this year. So again, another US tech company that is cutting off or laying off people. They basically laying off 10% of their workforce. That's a decent amount, I would imagine. So basically, yeah, this is kind of what I've basically been saying it, kind of speculating about that. So the semiconductor market is slowing down, and if that is the case, such as we're seeing here now with a massive company, which is Samsung. I mean, I'm sure you have some sort of Samsung product in your home, right? Either a TV or something like that. They're getting, they're advising that they're losing money. And then I'm curious if this is just things coming back to whatever you may call normal, because everything kind of went ballistic after the COVID pandemic, during the COVID pandemic. So yeah, I just find that kind of a crazy situation. And then I like this ETF here, SOXX, is basically the semiconductor market all in one chart. So it is in here you got a lot of the big semiconductor companies. You got Nvidia, you have Micron, you got ASML, which basically supplies the equipment that is used to create semiconductors, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, Texas Instruments, Qualcomm, Intel is within this ETF. A lot of major big companies. So this basically this saying that, you know, prices are trending downward in the semiconductor market. And then what I was kind of pointing out about that is that that potentially means that less phones are being sold, less cars are being sold, less, I don't know, kitchen hardware equipment such as microwaves and toasters and ovens are being sold. All kinds of electronics that use these chips, less of them are being sold. So that's an interesting thing to kind of maybe see occurring, because that might mean that prices are going to continue going lower for all these kinds of products. And then if that's the case, all these companies, the stock is going to continue to get hit or go lower. And then on the other hand, the VIX, so volatility, which I've been looking at. This volatility is basically just you know, how volatile the market is. So when this thing goes up, S&P goes down. When S&P goes up, this thing goes down. But I was looking at the volatility index, and it's basically uptrending. This thing comes down, but then it pops, it comes down, and then it pops. And in every pop, that means the S&P is going down. So I find that interesting to see volatility in an uptrend. And then Amazon, again, this is what I was curious and thinking, is this just things coming back to whatever you call normal over the ridiculousness of the pandemic? But I don't know. I mean, that's just something I been curious about. And then this is Amazon stock. You can kind of see this thing has not been doing good over the past year or whatnot. So yeah, that is interesting chart to see. So let me stop the sharing. So yeah, that's basically it. So I'll leave you with a good quote. Remember that for an event to be a black swan, it does not have to be rare or just wild. It has to be unexpected. It has to lie outside our tunnel of possibilities. You must be a sucker for it. So it's a good quote. I got it from the Black Swan book. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope I shared some valuable information with you today. So I'll see you guys on the next one.